Hey folks, Malforian here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at Dev Diary 137, Machinations of a Clan for Crusader Kings 3. This is going over all the changes they're bringing with clan governments, and as they say here in these opening few paragraphs, playing as clans at the moment plays very much like playing feudal. There's not really that much of a difference. There's the opinion modifiers and having to marry into your vassals, which are the major difference. But overall, it does play very similar to feudal. And they're going to lay out here through unity and tax collectors and things like that, how it is actually going to differentiate from feudal once this gets released into the game. It is coming as part of the Legacy of Persia DLC, but this is actually going to be part of the free patch. From what I can tell, they mention at the end it is, and I think it means everything in here. It would make sense because it's all about structural changes to how clans work in the game, and as we've seen already, any major changes like that are coming to everyone. They're not going to be locked behind DLC. I'm sure there'll be some more stuff coming in the future that will be. Obviously, there'll be some content in the DLC that is DLC exclusive, but mechanical changes are going to be part of the free patch, so that's awesome to see. As always, means everyone can enjoy them. And this opening thing here, they're just saying, as I said, that they really wanted to make clans set apart from feudal and actually make it feel that little bit different and a little bit less annoying. A lot of people I talk to in the comments and in my streams and things like that always say clan is horrendous to play as. Well, it's not horrendous, it's just not fun. So on that note, we're going to get straight into it. As always, thumbs up if you enjoy the video today, subscribe if you're new here. I cover all of Crusader Kings and then some other Paradox titles as well and other grand strategy games. The first section here is going to be tax jurisdictions and tax collectors. They did mention this last week. While they wanted to add something new to clan obligations, they had to ask themselves how could they make it different. As with all things Crusader Kings, adding a new element that makes use of characters felt like a natural fit to give obligations some personality, if you will, meet the tax collector. And here we go. They've got two tax collectors here in a new UI. So we're getting a different UI. I imagine it's this bottom one here, like the sack of coins. I imagine if you're playing a clan government, that icon will appear, and if you're not, obviously there's no need to show it. You'll have access to a limited number of tax jurisdictions, which you can assign your clan vassals as taxpayers, allowing you to gain both taxes and levies from your subjects. A jurisdiction requires a tax collector to function, however, so before you collect any taxes, you need to appoint one of your courtiers as a tax collector for each jurisdiction. And this is the first thing where I kind of like this system, but I also dislike how I think some of these council positions are working. Feels like another part of the game where you've got to go farming the, invite courtier system to try find a perfect fit. And obviously, if you're just playing day to day, you're not like min-maxing and things like that, you're probably just going to pick someone from your court. But if you are kind of min-maxing or really getting into the game, it's going to feel like another thing. You've got to go farming out people, trying to find the perfect fit to get the maximum bonus from it, which I don't think is, naturally a bad idea. But I do feel like there's a lot of these now where you're constantly having to find people that are really good at a system to get the most out of it. I'm not sure how else they could have done it. Maybe it had to be one of your vassals, or maybe even a relative of your vassal or something. Perhaps you got a bonus if you chose one that was related, so you didn't have to pick one, but you did get an additional bonus maybe. Maybe that vassal liked you even more because they'd be like, oh, you picked someone from my house to be your tax collector. You obviously have respect for me, have a good opinion of me, so I'm going to like you back that little bit more. Something like that to kind of tie it in where you're going to kind of get a little bit more out of it, or it's going to feel a little bit more interesting. I think it just being random courtiers again, it's fine, but I think there's a lot of these now, and it gets a little bit tedious having to find the perfect one every time, but it's not the worst. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I just feel like the more of these that get added, the kind of more tedious it's kind of getting. But with tax collectors, you won't manage the obligations of your vassals directly. Instead, you have to manage them through your tax collector. Similar to a court position, a tax collector uses their aptitude to set the obligations of the vassals assigned to them. Higher levels of aptitude means you get more taxes and more levies, and this is where I'm saying like you're going to have to go and find good people, really, unless you are kind of just role-playing and just picking anyone that you want or something like that. Aptitude is based primarily on their skills, with learning being the most important one, but their opinion of you also playing a significant part. To maximize the use of your tax collectors, you want to find and appoint a skilled character and then put the sway scheme to good use to squeeze as much gold from your subjects as possible. And as I said, is that kind of good gameplay? I'm not too sure. Like, you've got to find someone with good aptitude and then you've got to make sure they like you, which isn't that difficult, but you're kind of having to use a sway scheme or some other mechanic to make them like you to get the maximum reward out of something they're already good at. I could understand maybe if their aptitude didn't matter, and then the more they liked you, the better they got. But kind of having both of these systems together, I'm not too sure. Like I said, let me know what you think in the comments. I don't know, like these stacking of like requirements to get the most out of something. I can see like day-to-day players getting a little bit annoyed with them. While your tax collectors act as intermediaries, you are still able to extract a certain amount of control over how they should manage your vassals. This is where tax decrees come into play. A tax decree is essentially how you want your vassals to be taxed, changing the obligations and providing an assortment of additional benefits. So very similar to your vassal contracts, basically, but all around how this works. And as you can see, quite a nice UI. I like these icons for everything. Obviously, the basic taxes, and then all these different ones that you need requirements to hit, but they're going to go over some of them in a second. With the introduction of tax decrees, it made perfect sense to move over some of the aspects of vassal contracts to this new system instead. For example, as we've already seen, the Ikta, Jazia, and Jazia, definitely pronounced those wrong, I do apologize, to use as you see fit. While you won't have to bother with decrees if you don't want to, they do give you an opportunity to min-max in different ways. Which is funny, I'm sure not too long ago they were saying they didn't like people stacking bonuses and min-maxing as much as possible, but looks like they're going back on that a little bit. Decrees change the obligations of your vassals, either increasing or reducing them in exchange for other rewards, as we've seen with these kind of things previously in the game. Take Ikta, for example. It is a great option if you find yourself with vassals who are slightly upset, just enough for you to start taking notice, and if you also find yourself being at war frequently, as it provides you with increased men-at-arms damage based on the number of assigned vassals alongside an opinion bonus. Okay, so that's not too bad. So yeah, you lose obviously some tax, you lose some levies, but instead it boosts your men-at-arms damage with the amount of people that are assigned to this. And then, yeah, the vassal also gets a reduction in men-at-arms cost and a reduction in maintenance, and they like you more. So this one's pretty cool. If you've got some money and you're really wanting to go to war, and as we all know, men-at-arms are way more powerful than levies, so I'd probably take less tax and less levies, especially later in the game when you're generally making enough money, and get more bonuses around this. It looks like it is, what, 1% per assigned vassal? So, you know, if you have 10 vassals, it's 10%. Not a lot, but it's not bad for basically losing 20% of your tax. I mean, I'd probably take that most of the time. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do it too much, but I think it's a pretty cool system. And obviously, these other ones here are going to give different bonuses as well. So now it doesn't actually say how you assign them. I imagine you just pick one of these guys, click one of these buttons here. Oh yeah, it must be here, taxpayers. Yeah, you must click this icon and then add your vassals to each one, because as I mentioned last week, you might want to specialize certain ones into like heretic characters that are your vassals or different things like that. Maybe you don't want to empower a vassal that you don't particularly like, who's pretty powerful. Maybe you wouldn't want to give him these bonuses here, making his men-at-arms cheaper and things like that. Maybe you don't want him to have a cheaper army. So there are different ways this is going to work. Pretty cool. One thing to consider is the modifiers applied to the obligations occur on a level set by your tax collector, which makes decrees more or less powerful depending on the tax collector in question. Looking at the effects of Ikta, minus 20% to both taxes and levies won't be very noticeable if your tax collector is terrible in aptitude. I guess that makes sense. I guess if they're taking less money in because they're not very good, I guess 20% of less money is less noticeable in a way. I mean, I kind of get the logic there. And I imagine the plus 1% is like just always plus 1%. So I kind of get what they're saying here. It's a bit weird in a way, like, yeah, if you've got a terrible tax collector, they're giving you less money, so 20% of less money isn't as noticeable. But I mean, you're making so much less money, it kind of is noticeable. If they were really good, then yeah, you lose 20% of like maybe 50% more money, but you're still overall going to be making more money. So I kind of get what they're saying, it's just a little bit weird. Anyway, that sums up how tax jurisdictions, collectors, and decrees work. With obligations out of the way, they're going to go on to House Unity, but overall, I think this first section's really good. I like how it's going to change how these work. I guess it's going to be annoying if you don't have very many good courtiers that can actually take this tax collector role, because you're going to be earning kind of less money than you would potentially at the moment in the game. And we're going to go on to House Unity next, which again, they did show us a little bit off last week, but there's a lot more detail here, and I really like the succession thing. I think people will be very happy with it once we get there. But as the name suggests, clans should be about the clan itself and its members. Makes total sense. Something that we don't really represent at the moment, nor does it have any real effect on the game. I would agree. As I've said, it's kind of just annoying to do. It doesn't actually change how you play the game at all, really. And it puts a significantly larger emphasis on your house when you're playing a clan. So we are introducing House Unity. Unity represents the overall state of the house, essentially the internal relationships between its members and the attitude they have towards each other. In many ways, Unity is a result of how you choose to interact with your fellow house members, and that's what they're going to be covering. And we saw this screenshot last week, or a version of it anyway, with the house unity kind of system here and the 5 different bars and how it changes succession and the different bonuses you get. We measure unity on a scale of 0 to 200, divided into 5 ranges, as we've already seen. Each level comes with a set of rules and trade-offs to make it more noticeable when you play the game. By default, most houses start at the middle, essentially neutral level. From here, they'll be able to actively increase or decrease their unity. The levels are as follows: antagonistic, competitive, impassive, friendly, and harmonious. Thematically, having a high level of unity means you enjoy internal stability and have house members that, generally speaking, adopt a friendly attitude towards each other, but you will pay for this with reduced capability to wage wars efficiently. And this is the one bit that doesn't really make sense in this system. I kind of get what they're going for, and I think it is a way to kind of balance how the system works, but we'll cover that as we keep going today. But that is one thing that already kind of jumped out to me as being a little bit weird, just thematically. Casus Belli become more expensive to use, and you can no longer use the Invasion Casus Belli, which we did see last week, and I wondered how that was going to work. A low level of unity provides you with the opposite. You will gain a great deal of military might, allowing you to more easily conquer large swathes of land, but pay the price with reduced internal stability. Depending on your playstyle, you might enjoy a particular direction one way or the other. Regardless of your preference, having either high or low levels of unity is meant to be equally viable. Instead of having him, and I guess me, ramble on about their effects, they're just going to show you some screenshots. So the one thing here that doesn't really make sense to me is the fact that if you have high, harmonious unity, it actually makes it harder to do wars. But if you have low, if you're antagonistic towards each other, it actually makes it easier to do wars. I'm not sure how that works, because surely if you're harmonious, you're all kind of unified, you're all getting along great. Wouldn't you be like, come on guys, let's go invade the heretics, let's go expand our lands, let's have, some glory for our house. And if you had bad unity, wouldn't you just be infighting all the time, and you wouldn't be able to go on these massive campaigns if you were able to do that? Like, why can you use invasion when you have low unity and not at high unity? I think I know why, because it balances out some of the other bonuses, but let me know what you think. I mean, I could kind of see it. It's saying like, oh, if you got low unity, maybe you're trying to like unify them. Maybe you're saying like, hey, stop fighting. We got this water fight, a bit of a misdirection or something like that, kind of showing an enemy outside of your house. Maybe that's how they're kind of bringing it along, but again, it doesn't really make sense to me that this is how it works. I'd almost think it was the other way around. As I said, the more unified you are, the easier it is to do wars, etc. But anyway, as we've seen here, these are the different bonuses. I'm not going to go through them all. As always, I'll leave a link to this in the description down below, so you can take a look yourself. But this is the kind of worst one, the antagonistic one, or, this is good in other ways. So we'll go through this one and the best one, as it were, and see what the differences are here. And then the ones in between. So house succession law is antagonistic succession. They're going to cover that in a second as well. Rulers have unlimited access to the Invasion Casus Belli. That is crazy. So you can basically just do invasions constantly if you're antagonistic. And it's not just you. I do believe this is every ruler that is from this house has unlimited access to the Invasion Casus Belli. This is potentially going to go nuts. If the Umayyads or someone are very powerful and they're antagonistic, like, couldn't they just go crazy across the map? I know it affects like claimant factions, as they say here, and things like that, so they are probably going to have a lot of internal wars and things like that, but still, unlimited access to the Invasion Casus Belli seems decent. So as they were saying, bonuses and negatives to everything in here. All Casus Bellis that require a specific level of fame require one less, so the wars outside of invasions are even easier to do anyway, so that's pretty cool. Victory, white peace, and defeat have various effects on house vassal opinion. I'm guessing if you win wars, it increases vassal opinion from your house members. I think this is how they're going to try sell it. The fact that you have a lot easier wars, it's like using those to kind of unify your house. Like, yeah, things are going really bad, guys, but let's go attack these other people. We'll increase our level of fame. I'll win these wars, and when I do, you'll like me more because I'm bringing glory to our empire and things like that. I think that's how it's kind of being sold. House members may challenge their house head in order to take their place, though. So if you're the house head and you're antagonistic, someone can come up to you and say, let's have a duel. Well, it doesn't actually say a duel, does it? It just says challenge you. I guess it means through a duel or something like that. Must be some kind of event, I guess, where they can potentially take over your position as house head. And then I guess you have to fight to get it back. And then house vassals are significantly more likely to create claimant factions. So that's kind of the trade-off you're getting for these really easy wars. you are getting this claimant factions popping up all the time, people trying to take your job and things like that. And Casus Belli cost 30% less, so unlimited invasions, easier Casus Belli, and they're also 30% cheaper. So all in all, having a good time, aren't you, really? Like I said, we won't go over these middle ones. They're basically a weaker version of the ones we're going to see, with some different changes in there as well, but generally that's the case. House succession law is harmonious succession, which I'm going to cover later, so we won't talk about that now. Unlocks rescue house members, Casus Belli. This is where you can rescue people that have been abducted and things like that, I believe. Unlocks unify the house Casus Belli. Rulers cannot use the invasion Casus Belli, so the opposite of the worst one. You can't use it at all, whereas you can obviously usually. House vassals are significantly less likely to create factions, as I already said, that kind of reward for not being able to do them. House members can befriend each other without the requirements of usually how to befriend people. Casus Belli cost 30% more, so just your general wars are harder to do as well. Again, I don't really understand why that's the case. Like, I get, like, it's harmonious within your house. I don't think it almost comes across as like you turn into like pacifists, which isn't the case. Surely you're just unified. Isn't you're pacifist towards other people? I could understand Casus Belli cost against other people from your house or even other people from clan governments or something like that, but just generally 30% more. I don't know if I'd take that trade, although the harmonious succession is really good, so maybe I would. And then Dread Decay, minus 40%. I guess you can do dreadful things and it just decays quicker. So I guess that's a good bonus. I'm not too sure. Other than the passive effects, you can gain access to some unique decisions, most of which are available only to the house head, as they provide powerful boons to the entirety of the house. So there are also other bonuses, not just the ones you see here. These are just from your House of Unity, not the decisions as well. The primary currency for these decisions is piety, which is cool. I like they've added another thing to use piety on, because currently there isn't that much, so it's good to use this kind of currency in another system, which is a nice bonus, basically, for stockpiling it up a little bit. Since most clans belong to the Islamic faith, this felt like a natural fit. I would agree with it. Besides, piety is generally more difficult to get than prestige, making you consider where and when to use piety. Again, I'd agree with that. It is harder to get faith-based currency rather than prestige. You get prestige from so many places now, whereas piety is still quite a rare resource in many ways. Some of these decisions make use of a completely new type of modifier, a modifier that scales on the number of landed house members. If you are like me and like to utilize nepotism to its fullest, these modifiers can become incredibly powerful. Be mindful that the piety cost will increase accordingly. That kind of makes sense. For all you modders out there, you can use scaling modifiers in every place you use a regular modifier. You simply need to feed it a value and how you want it to scale. Oh, that's really cool. Like, I don't make mods myself. As I always say on the channel, I play great mods. I don't know how to make them. And this would be cool, I would imagine, in some mods, being able to scale anything through a modifier. And you just say whatever reason is how it scales is really cool. And then here is an example. This is reinforced army with loyal officers. An army is only as strong as the officers who lead it, and you get a house bonus of loyal army officers for 10 years. You have to be antagonistic. You are the house head. Costs you nearly 500 piety, which is quite a bit, but it's not too crazy. And the bonus it gives you is men-at-arms damage, and this increases by 2% per landed house member. And then toughness is plus 1% per landed house member. So you're already kind of pushed towards landing people from your house. This is going to make it even more of a bonus. You want to get as many people as possible landed, because then you're getting these crazy good bonuses. Does this last for, 10 years this lasts for, and then it's unavailable for 20 years after that. So that's a pretty good bonus. You know, if you know you're coming up to a big set of wars, maybe you can press this button, you get these bonuses, and then, yeah, it's got a cooldown, but that's fine. I wonder if the cooldown stays even if you play as a different character. I imagine it does, because it's linked to your house. I imagine it is. So you can't just have it, and then you die, and then your next character presses the button again. I imagine it must be linked to the house itself rather than the actual character. But some nice bonuses, especially linked to the other bonuses you get for antagonistic. The other, you know, the Casus Belli unlocks and things like that. So, yeah, you can go on all these invasions and have an even better army. And then last but not least, Unity directly affects the outcome of your succession. Each level has an impact on the outcome of how titles are inherited, and the succession changes automatically as your house Unity changes. People are going to enjoy this, I think. I think a lot of people don't like playing the normal succession rules, and this is going to be a really cool reason to play clans. They all maintain a variation of partition. So yes, there is no primogenitor here, but as almost as close as you can get, meaning that titles will always be split to some extent. When you're antagonistic, all eligible children inherit equal shares. So yeah, that's bad. That is bad unless, you know, you're not min-maxing, you're just having a good time, then it's pretty fun, but yeah, most people not going to like that. If you are harmonious, the primary heir inherits the majority of the titles, at least 2/3, with a varying degree in between. So yeah, a full harmonious, you basically get 2/3 of all titles, and then at the bottom, you basically get a split equal between everyone. So these harmonious realms are going to stay relatively unified. Yeah, they're going to have a harder time going to war, but they're going to be very kind of structurally sound. At worst, this means that you will have to deal with Confederate partition, and at best, you will have a superior version of high partition. These are basically just variations of the currently available ones, but obviously you don't have to have the laws around it. This is all just based on your unity, so you haven't got to research things. You can get to basically high partition immediately. Well, not immediately, because you've got to get up to harmonious, but pretty quickly you can get up to high partition at the early years of the game, and you're having a good time. The drawback, while you can try to get to single heir succession laws, such as primogenitor, it is more difficult and more expensive to do so. Now, I don't think it shows how. No, it doesn't. It just shows here, these are the 3 options. I imagine they've just upped the cost, and there may be some other way to make it more difficult, because I don't understand how else it could be, because at the moment you have to have, what, the law, and then you have to have your vassals have a positive opinion of you. I wonder if for, like, primogenitor, you have to obviously still have the law, but then also maybe they have to have like 100 opinion of you or something even better than just they like you at all. I guess you are basically taking out the clan system at that point and saying like, yeah, me and my heirs will forever rule this place. We're basically going feudal at that point. So it'd be interesting to see exactly how much it costs, but it kind of makes sense because I think you kind of want to keep this clan system going into your future adventures. I think it kind of makes more sense, but it is cool you can switch to the single realm heir system. So now that we know what Unity does, let's explore how it is impacted by gameplay. As previously mentioned, Unity is all about the members of the house and how they interact. And basically, any decision that you can do has an effect. So some things are already in the game. They've added in the Unity system into there to kind of integrate this system into more things. You know, revoking titles from clan members will obviously make him like you less. Giving them titles obviously make them like you more. And things like that. You know, the obvious things, they will now have a Unity change as well due to those actions. So, you know, unifying actions such as negotiating an alliance or offering a ward will increase unity. Unity is therefore a byproduct of how you and your fellow members interact with each other. So yeah, just the obvious things. If you do nice things, you're going to get positive unity. If you do bad things to people in your house, you're going to get negative ones. Pretty obvious. With that being said, the househead enjoys a number of additional actions, giving them a greater degree on control in how they want to direct the unity of their house. The foremost is a decision in which the house actively takes a stance and chooses a direction to steer their unity. So I guess if you don't want to let the house members kind of control it, because obviously as a house head, you're not controlling, you know, how some member of your house is killing other members of your house. You don't really have control over that directly, so everyone else could be killing each other or, you know, abducting each other or revoking titles from each other. And you're at the top being like, come on, guys, can we just be harmonious? And they're like, nah, we're just going to be doing bad things. And you're going to go down the scale, even though you're trying to be the best one or the top one anyway. But you can basically, through this system, generally kind of push them towards one way or another. So the house unity will change by +10 towards harmonious, or if you're steering it towards antagonistic, you get +10 towards antagonistic, so -10 unity basically, and then it will increase yearly for the next 10 years. So I guess it goes up by +10 every year. So you can't like fully control what kind of unity you have, but you can kind of, you know, push them towards that. And then obviously it will change the bonuses that we've seen already. So that will kind of push them towards continuing towards that direction, I would think. We'll obviously see how it plays out in game. And then there are some other things here. Obviously, accused of decadence. You gain stress, I guess, based on what kind of character you are. They gain accused of decadence and they lose opinion of you, and it will lower house unity. So they would get this, you know, minus piety, more stress gain, house opinion reduction, but they get to scheme a little bit more. And other people who are accused of decadence also like them. So this is another way of where you can kind of risk reward. You can accuse them of decadence to lower the house unity, but then obviously they're getting these modifiers based on that. Or extol virtueness, you can basically do the other way. You can say, yeah, you're great. You're virtuous like me, increases the house unity, gives them more piety, gives them house opinion, but it makes them worse at scheming. So I wonder actually if this one, if you had somebody in your house that you knew was trying to say kill you, you could like double-faced, like, I think you're great. I think you're really virtuous. Here's some piety. Here's some house opinion. Oh, look. It also means it's harder for you to kill somebody, which would be kind of a cool mechanic to do. You know, it's kind of like a fake reward for them. Like, hey, yeah, you're great. Oh, look at that. You can't kill me now. Or a harder way of trying to kill you. So I like that. It could bring some cool RP moments into the game, trying to almost like buy somebody off in a way. So there are, of course, many more interactions, far too many to list in this dev diary. So there's a chance, I guess, they might show some of these off in screenshots in later dev diaries before it comes out. But if not, obviously on launch, we'll get to see them all as we play along. And then as they say here, updated clan governments come with this patch, but it is part of the free update launching alongside Legacy of Persia. So I think that means everything talked about today is part of the free patch from what I believe. From what they've said here, updated clan governments, all of this sounds like base mechanics for the clan government, so I don't think any of this is behind the DLC, which is fantastic. As I said at the beginning, it's great allowing everyone to use these without having to purchase the DLC. And then I imagine there'll be like events or something else that will be for the DLC owners. So, you know, their reward for kind of funding the future DLC and things like that. They'll get additional content probably based around these and events and things like that. So yeah, fantastic to see they're still carrying on with this, having the improved mechanics in the base game itself. But anyway, on that note, this actually ended up being a longer video than I thought it was going to be. So as always, hit that like button if you've enjoyed your time here today. Subscribe. I cover Crusader Kings, obviously all the dev diaries. I do campaigns, I do discussion videos, all that good stuff. I also cover other Paradox Interactive games, such as the newly announced Millennia and Star Trek Infinite, but other historical strategy games as well. So if you've enjoyed all of this, subscribe to the channel. Plenty more coming in the future. But on that note, we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you in the next one.